Welcome to Crash Course Church History. Today we're going to talk about Western monasticism. The first thing you should know about Western monasticism is that it's not an idea, but a practice.
It's a way of life and a commitment to living according to the rule of Saint Benedict.
In the 21st century, we would categorize their rituals as spirituality.
The idea originated in India with Siddhartha the Buddha.
During the 5th century, Italy and the entire Mediterranean world was falling back into barbarianism. The church was torn by conflict. City and country alike were made desolate by war and pillage. The influence of Western monasticism was felt at the fringes of the Christian Greco-Roman Empire. Abbeys offered a practical way of helping people live in a world threatened by violence and sudden change.
Saint Benedict in Nursia formed a famous monastery at Monte Cassino in present-day Italy. It was a self-sustaining community, meaning it supplied itself with food, shelter, and clothing. It was based on moderation in all things. He developed this rule of Saint Benedict.
Saint Benedict was sent to Rome to be educated, but by the time he was 20 years old, he decided to go away from Rome to live in some remote spot. No one knew of his plans except an aged family servant, who loyally insisted on accompanying him to serve his wants. Benedict and this servant made their way 30 miles from Rome into the Sabine Mountains.
In these early monastic communities, men and women pledged lives of prayer, celibacy, poverty, and obedience to a superior called an abbat or abbess. Benedict, one of the monks, also called on his people to take vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience.
Members of the monasteries would spend many hours in prayer and solitude. As his reputation spread, other men sought him out and took up their own lives of solitary prayer. These groupings of monks centered around a spiritual leader and spread through the deserts of Asia Minor and Egypt. Barbarian invaders destroyed many of the early church writings on the European mainland.
Because of the barbaric invasions, this leads to a lack of communication and the decline of literacy. Gregory the Great was a Benedictine monk who was the first to use the title Servant of the Servants of God.
Irish monks were somewhat protected from these disruptions because the English Channel separated Ireland from the mainland. They devoted their lives to illustrating and copying manuscripts. Apart from pilgrimages, the institutions of contemplative monasticism engage only a tiny minority of Western Christians, while the spirituality that developed wins greater admiration. Historians credit the Irish monastic communities for helping to preserve Western culture and reintroduce vital church texts to the European mainland. To some extent, Christian monasticism resembles rabbinic Judaism. The Jews affirm that the mandates of the Torah come directly from God, whereas Christians acknowledge that any rule comes from a human lawgiver. Monasticism implies the constant renewal of the quest of the founder's vision. Monasticism provided more variety in Western Europe than in any other place.
You might think this is ancient history, but it's still present in the modern society. Monasteries Christianized Europe. Irish writings of these illuminated manuscripts survive today. They're called illuminated because of the brilliantly colored decoration. The rule of Saint Benedict is still active in many religious orders. Monasteries preserved Western knowledge by copying manuscripts and promoting learning through monastery schools. Monks developed great music, art, architecture techniques in agriculture, wine production, and wool spinning and weaving.
Thanks for watching our crash course on Western monasticism.